Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Welcome in, y'all. Man, what a wonderful, glorious day this is. We have two co-hosts to join me today on this show. We are going to be diving into the Subterranean Reptilians and Whistleblower testimony and the possibility of them being one of the big reasons a lot of these people are going missing around the United States and across the globe. So you guys get ready, buckle up. I'm so glad y'all are here today. I had a fantastic weekend. Did speak at the UFO conference up in Blue Ridge, Georgia. And so I wanted to give a shout out to everybody who was there. All my new subscribers, everybody that I got to meet over the weekend there, and at Expedition Bigfoot, that amazing Bigfoot museum up in North Georgia. It was fun. I had a great time. Good time. My son had a good time. And so thank you for everybody that came out and showed your support over the weekend. We also had a great show with Barry and Edie Testerman as well. If you guys missed that, please go back and watch that. We discussed I guess it was when you summon a UFO and it goes terribly wrong. Okay. And that's the thing, y'all. You got to be really careful. We got into demonics. We got into extraterrestrials. We got into all that. So if you missed it, please go back and check that out. It's definitely worth the watch. Okay. Well, if you guys would like to go back, speaking of going back and watching, if you'd like to see my archives, please go to thecryptidhuntress.com. You can find all of my shows there. And also you can go to my YouTube channel. It's the Cryptid Huntress. But thecryptidhuntress.com has a calendar of all of my events. And yes, I think the next event that I have will be the Georgia Bigfoot Conference. I'm their keynote speaker this year. So that's super awesome. So hopefully you guys will come meet me there on March the 22nd in Demarest, Georgia. It's going to be a huge, big event, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And come hang out with us. Lots of great vendors. If you guys want to buy Bigfoot stuff, come to this. Okay. Also, I have a Patreon. It's thecryptidhuntress.com if you'd like to support my work, and I have a shop. It's called War Woman Goods. Of course, I also have not only the Georgia Bigfoot Conference coming up, but in July, we have the 2025 Full Disclosure Now Conference. That's in St. Petersburg, Florida. And one of my co-hosts today, Mr. Brian Tseng, is in charge of that. He is the organizer of the Full Disclosure Now Conference, and he's with the Full Disclosure Now movement. And so y'all, please come down and see us. Get your tickets now. Book your room now. And that's going to be another great event as well. Okay, y'all. Well, let's get to our show today because we have a lot to talk about. My goodness, Barry has really covered the reptilian subject quite extensively on his YouTube channel. That's Barry Littleton on YouTube and on Patreon. If you guys would like to go check his channel out and some of his videos, we're going to be referencing some of his videos today on this show. We're going to be talking about subterranean reptilians, namely the Alpha Draconians. I haven't really covered them very much. Based on the testimony of Alex Collier and people like Phil Schneider and other whistleblowers. And we're going to be looking into the connection to these reptilian humanoids, to the missing persons epidemic, and even their connection to government agencies and secret societies and more. Y'all know we've covered this a little bit. We touch on it every now and then. And y'all know I love talking about reptilians. Okay. We're also going to probably look into why it's so heavily censored as well. I have a personal story about that. And yes, this show will have a Wikipedia warning underneath it. Just give it a few minutes. It'll pop up. Okay. Well, to help me talk about all these subjects today and for their amazing input, I have our good friend Barry Littleton here in the studio. He's a fantastic cutting edge researcher of all things paranormal, supernatural, spiritual, cryptid, UFO, extraterrestrial. So please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Barry Littleton. And I also have our good friend Brian Tseng, who is with the Full Disclosure Now movement. And you guys know Brian, he's been on the show plenty of times. Please check out the website, fulldisclosuremovement.org. Welcome to the show, Mr. Brian Tseng.
Hi, Jessica.
Brian?
Hi, Barry.
Hey.
I've got some treats for us.
Hey, y'all. Go ahead, Brian.
I have some treats for us today as well regarding reptilians, especially I'm now in contact via multiple people with Her Highness Queen Rumvaya. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of her name, but she is a positive Draco reptilian queen who is moving from the dark to the light, who wants her people to be freed from the influence of black goo on the remnants of the fractured Siakar Draco Orion reptilian empire that's been broken up for thousands of years now, but it's still an ongoing thing.
Whoa, very cool. Oh, that's a nice surprise. I can't wait to hear about it some more. And yeah, I mean, this is something that goes back centuries, millennia, who knows how long this has been, and it's up into the modern day. And I really got oops, we just lost Barry. I really got we lost a connection with Barry. I'm sorry, y'all. But I got some downloads over the weekend, Brian. I spoke at a UFO conference in North Georgia, and as we were in that conference, I saw there was a big interest in reptilians. Okay, and what they're doing on our planet, and the inner Earth aspect as well, and the subterranean reptilian aspect. And so I thought, let's go there. Let's talk about it. Let's definitely talk about here's Barry. He's back. Let's talk about the whistleblower connection. Hey, Barry.
That was weird. I'm sorry. So everything started going out. It says it's connected, but I don't know what happened.
Well, there's a lot of interference around this topic of reptilian. So I'm just gonna pray and ring a bell, for positivity and the light
Yes.
and the children, and that we can have a discussion unfettered by any interference.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting.
me too.
Right on.
It is.
Yeah,
it's definitely going to be interesting. I'm experiencing it on my end as well. A little bit of technical glitches over here, but and you're right, Brian. It does cover. I mean, we're going to be talking about trafficking humans as well a little bit today, and that is something that is of just epic, horrible proportions. All the missing people, and that's something Barry and I have extensively looked into when it comes to the national parks, missing persons clusters. I think that's where all the dots connect. We start connecting dots with the missing people there, the cryptid sightings, and the clusters of where the missing people are. There's also cryptid sightings or clusters of those as well, and UFO sightings and things like that. And I was wondering today, is there a map where they show where the reptilian sightings have been? Because that's something that we could use. I think they would correlate.
I haven't seen any one particular map, but I kind of do have a mental map in my mind of where all the sightings have been. A lot of them tend to be either in the desert regions, like the Southwest, the Four Corners area, the what are they called, the Danger Mountains or the Mystery Mountains. I forget the name, but there's a particular mountain range known for this. And it might be Nyara Tierra Isley in our community has spoken of encountering reptilians in that region as well. And it wasn't a pleasant encounter from what I recall in her testimony there. Also, they tend to be, I think, I forget the gentleman's name with the Dogman Paranormal YouTube. Nick Nadalny or something. He did something. Jeff Nadalny, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, where they were talking about, there's the national parks, right, tend to have deep underground military bases because there tend to be ley line intersections and portals and sacred sites. Mm-hmm. And then with that come all this ET technology and ancient human civilizational technology that an artifacts within those zones. So there's a reason for that. And then, of course, with the Draco reptilians and their relationship to Earth and their forever long-standing ownership of Earth. Okay, this is why we have reptilians underground still. And the Galactic Federation, apparently, after the Anunnaki and Draco were kind of enslaving humanity and really abusing us, having us enslaved to mine gold for hundreds of thousands of years, they came to a pact where the Draco and the Anunnaki would no longer be seen on the surface of the Earth. You had reptilians go inner Earth. And humans, this whole time, we've been run as a loosh or slave farm for blood products, among other things, which ties into all the Illuminati, Luciferian derp state stuff, which I'm sure our viewership is quite familiar with.
Yes. I was going over some really disturbing information when I was reading over what Phil Schneider had talked about in his testimony. And of course, he did lose his life. Okay. And I can't remember what year that was that he gave his testimony. I think it was back in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
93, I think, was
93.
when he might have gone, when they took him out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just disturbing talking about, I mean, even Alex Collier as well. Okay. Their testimony is pretty disturbing when it comes to what is here on this planet, inside this planet, underneath our feet. That's going on in I don't know if it's all military bases or it's just this deep caverns, 100 miles underneath the surface of the Earth, 100 to 200 to 300 miles deep. I mean, we're not talking just like a cave system underneath us. It's way down. Okay. But body parts, children. Okay. Just the nature of, and I know there's good reptilian humanoids, okay, but there's also the dark side. And today I was kind of focusing on the dark side a little bit, but we're going to talk about both, okay. But they eat humans, okay. They eat humans, and it seems as though our government, let's just say, and this is all allegedly for entertainment purpose only, they are in on it. Some people, some factions of, let's just say, agencies or governments potentially could be working with them in some way. Yeah. I don't know, Barry, I know that you're more, you've kind of dive into the more positive side of the reptilians, right? What is your opinion on all this?
I don't. First, let me say, first and foremost, is that I've had contact my whole life, but I have not had contact with reptilians. All right, I've not been on one of these craft and seen a 9-foot tall bipedal crocodile, alligator, which is cool with me. You know what I mean? So I'm by no means an expert on them, but given that the testimony I've heard from some others, and then when I started encountering in the work also, got me very, very, very questionable, just asking a lot of questions, about some of the things that maybe we don't hear that's correct. And another thing is this: I very much try to separate fantasy from fact. And in this whole topic, so much fantasy comes involved with it. And I kind of want to, make that distinguishment when we're dealing with this topic a lot. So but as far as what got me kind of curious about the positive ones was the work of Ray Hernandez and CCRI, what they did. And I gave you actually one of the questionnaire questions that were there. And I was one of the people that had to skip that one because I had not encountered them. But when you look at the graph on that, it's not nearly the negative skew that we would think, and you've got a big portion there, 32%, that says not sure. And I asked Ray, I said, what's going on with that? And he said, a lot of the people, you got to fill out like a, paragraph why you feel that way. And a lot of them said the same thing, that they didn't do anything to me, but just experiencing them, seeing them visually was frightening. But they didn't do anything. They even maybe gave me some information or something. So it just made me a little bit curious why that chart was like that, and it made me reach out. At least I have enough platform. I talk to a lot of contactees, and I reached out and want to know who has physically encountered one of these.
I could say in our community, we know Penny Bradley, Niara Tiara Isley, Drago Reed, Arkeem Ra, John Whitberg, Joseph Powell, Christy
Daryl
Campbell,
James.
Daryl James, Chastity
Yeah.
Campbell, Tony Rodriguez, the entire Farsight Institute, especially Yemi Janae, Aziz Brown, Dr. Courtney Brown, Kamaya Dunstan. Let's see. I mean, I could keep going, but there are many that I know. And then Christopher Jacobs and Joanna Michaels, Sean Bond. Yeah, I could. It's like our list of presenters for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Barry's. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty on my end too. It's not difficulty, but it just kind of, my computer's freezing up for some reason. This has not happened in a while, by the way. And Barry's is freezing up too. So we're gonna get through this. Okay, we're gonna get through it. But Barry just had to hop back off again. Yeah, a lot of people have had contact with reptilians. We've heard. I mean, and actually, from Daryl James's testimony, he's been on our show, and his was not very positive, right? He got banished over a misunderstanding, got banished to go be a slave somewhere.
And I could speak to that. That's because Daryl James's involvement was, he signed up with the U.S. Navy, and he was basically kidnapped on one of these 20 and back time travel abduction secret space program schemes, but they're real. I'm not going to say it's a scheme, like it's a fake thing. Like they're very real. Many people have reported on these, and the secret space programs, unfortunately, are under the thrall ultimately of the Draco reptilians, the negative Draco, who have been in line with the Anunnaki or Jahami, the negatively oriented ones, running and dominating Earth this whole time. The way John Whitberg puts it is on an exopolitical level, or the who's who in the zoo. It's basically, think of, you've got the entire Milky Way, you've got the Lyran diaspora, where us humanoids originally were like cat people and dog people and tiger people and lion people from Lyra, the middle of the Milky Way. The Draco came in, and that was kind of like my favorite meme, run, dun, 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 dun. And it's like, that's a Lyran diaspora millions and millions of years ago. They set up the grand genetic experiment here on Earth, combining the genetics of 24 and now it's 22 starseed races, including reptilians, into the human form, combining the highest vibrating genetics and DNA and the lowest in the known universe, with all the different DNAs in one form of humanity. And per Elizabeth April and the Farsight Institute and Dolores Cannon and Edgar Casey and so many others, Earth, we're a keystone planet. What happens here is kind of like a tipping point, or like the needle on the camel's back, or straw on the camel's back, however you want to say it, for the rest of the universe, because of the power balance between now the Draco reptilians, the Galactic Federation of all the ET races who are tired of getting beaten up by the Draco and the negative grays underneath them, in particular the Mitra and the Zeta Reticulans, who've been enslaved. And the Mitra are a breakaway Zeta Gray reptilian hybrid. So if hybrids count for today's topic for reptilians. And then you've got basically the Draco reptilian empire. The reason why you have the pyramids all over the world, in China, not just Egypt, and throughout the Middle East and Northern Africa, and then the South Latin America, and here in the US, and then Ireland, the UK, they're laid out oftentimes in the Orion star system, okay, of the belt, I believe, like Thuban, and Draconis, right, which is like some of the homeworlds of these reptilians, and that's basically their way of tagging the Earth to say this is Orion, Draco, Siakar territory, okay? And it's like it's tagging the Earth literally and aligning the Earth energetically as well with their empire, their turf.
Wow. Okay, I would gone through a lot of an interview with Alex Collier, and I just really enjoyed this interview. And I need to I'll put a link to it in the description box after the show today, you guys, because he was talking about that. He's coming from an Andromedan point of view here, and he was saying that that it was going to that they pretty much trying to take over, right? They take over wherever they go, and we're talking about the Alpha Draconians. They go throughout the galaxy, okay, and they find a place that they have the resources. They drain all the resources dry, and this is according to his interview. Okay, they drain all the resources dry, and then they move on to the next place. Okay, and then they go, but they're also, I mean, they set up civilizations there and stuff too, and they came here. And basically, it's almost like humans are just like cattle to them, right? We're just kind of a food source for them, while they're over here getting our resources and things like that. And the way that they're down in the middle of our earth somewhere, and the way that they're kept down there, they don't come up here to bother us, is that they are satisfied, I guess you could say, by factions working with them who take them humans for consumption and things like that, right, Brian?
Yes, very much that. And then to add some more detail onto that, Jessica, the reptilians, a lot of them living inner Earth aren't necessarily the Alpha Draco types. They're more of like a native species. I think back to the dinosaurs that have been here for millions and millions of years. Then you got the Alpha Draco who are here in underground bases, which are now being cleared out, but this is still a thing. It's not quite over. There's still a lot of mess to clean up, is from what I hear on all accounts. And they're here interacting with the negative human sellout. I call them the Loserfarians and the derp state cabal puppets, the Bloodline families who they see together with the Alpha Draco, the negative ones at least, not all of them, humanity as cattle. And it really goes to, and I've spoken via Christopher Jacobs and Joanna Michaels telepathically. They're in telepathic contact with Draco, as well as Audrey Walters, Abigail Darcy. And I haven't spoken with them via Penny, but she's in touch with them, as is David Purcell. Okay. And the deal is that the negative Draco and even the positive Draco, because you got to look at the way that they're brought up. Some of them, they're brought up where they literally, it's kill or be killed with your own fellow hatchling brood siblings. Okay. So if it's kill or be killed with your own siblings from that age, and that's like even might be some of the more positive ones, they went through that trauma. Okay. They really do have this ingrained mentality of might makes right. It's not about spiritually what's the right thing, what's the best path for the evolution and highest good of all, what would source God want. That's not how they think, really. They really think if we can do it, if we can take it, if we can make it ours, then that's the way it should be, and that's good. That's the lawful order of things. And Arkeem Ra, our friend, he has a soul fragment altar known as Edward Hughes, who has a very distinct Australian accent. I've spoken with for like 4 hours, direct face-to-face time. I know this is a real altar or fragment of Arkeem's. He's from an alternate Earth timeline, a parallel Earth, like 2028 and a half AD. They're like 4.5 years ahead of us. So 29. So they'd be now 2029 and a half AD. And in their timeline, it's a much more positive Earth timeline where they were never messed with and time edited as heavily with the Montauk Project and with the secret space programs and with the breakaway civilizations. And the Vatican never became such a huge thing the way it is now. It didn't last over, like 2,000 years going. It barely lasted a couple hundred years in that timeline. And they apparently had a much more Tartarian timeline. And what Edward says is in their timeline, they did have some major battles with the Draconians, where the Draconians are basically saying, humans, bow down, or else we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And if you resist us, we're going to obliterate you, basically. And in that timeline, according to Edward Hughes, via Arkeem Ra. Humanity on Earth did resist. It was like a really nasty, terrible, bloody war. Lots and lots of humans died. But at the end of it, the Dracos did not obliterate all of Earth, which isn't even in their interest. They basically gave humanity the equivalent of a species noogie. Very good, human. You put up a good fight. You still enslaved by us, but your taxes will be a little bit less, and it's kind of like that was basically apparently what happened in that timeline. And it really shows you that they're in their mind, like we had to earn respect as a species by standing up to them. If we were always just bowing down, oh no, whatever you say, reptilian overlords, no respect, then you're just going to get it even worse. And that's reptilian thinking 101.
Wow, Brian, that is wild. And I'm so glad that you know way more about this than I do. I really am so glad. Because people like David Icke, right? He's always talked about how the royal family are reptilians, and I mean, it's something that we've talked about plenty of times on my show here about the royal bloodlines, the royals and stuff. They're all a bunch of reptilians, okay? Or they have that Draconian bloodline, right?
It's the DNA, because the deal is for Draco beings to get to inhabit human bodies, energetically, just any human that they might try to possess, the vibration and frequency and DNA just would not be an energetic match, and probably trying to force that, they and the human being they're trying to force into as a vehicle would die. Okay. But with the bloodline families, because they've got this Draco genetics inbreeding into their human DNA, that gives them an energy match that, especially when they do rituals that are involving sacrifice and negative spiritual beings, that helps them to have more of a frequency match to now allow them to inhabit that human host vehicle for longer and longer periods of time.
Oh, wow. Now, how is that connected to the Vril parasite?
Yeah, yes and no, in that, Donald Marshall and Phil, I forget his name, and others, Phil Chupa and others, many others, they speak to it. Yeah, maybe on your camera, your phone will work better.
Here, you're sideways.
Oh, he might have screen lock, so the camera isn't tilting. Or
let's see. There we
go. Yeah, that works. Hi, Barry. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, Barry.
We were just discussing the Vril. So the Vril, I believe, and according to Donald Marshall, they are a reptilian species, and they would fall more on the inner Earth category, that are native to Earth, and they're negatively aligned, but they themselves are not to be confused with the Draco reptilians, who are like 7 feet tall and higher, up to like 17 feet maybe, and or maybe a little bit taller than that. And I guess maybe physicality might change up a bit depending on dimensions, but the Vril parasites, anyone here who's familiar with Salvador Dali, and I can pull up the picture later.
I've been to his museum, actually, and it's down in St. Pete, where we're going to have the conference.
Oh, they have a Salvador Dali museum
do.
St. Pete Beach? Who knew? I did not know that.
Of course they do. I've been there.
So there's a really haunting photograph of him, and it looks like it's taken by the same photographer who's done the really well-known photo. It's all black and white, very stark. Looks like almost like a silver tintype, but more modern than that, of like this secret society, like all in a circle surrounding like someone on like a table, and they're like bandaged down like a mummy. Well, that person probably was also the same photographer who shot a photo of, it's like Salvador Dali, and he's like holding up like, it looks like what looks like a manta ray skate almost, but not quite, but like more reptilian. Okay. And in the background behind him, there's like a person lying on a bed, all bandaged up like the Invisible Man, like literally from head to toe, and all white mummy bandaging, but their eye is like patched over. And what it looks like is there's, according to Donald Marshall and others, there's Vril type 1, 2, and 3 reptilians. And the number 1 or 2, I forget what, one of them, they look like they're about the size of like orangutans or monkeys. And they're like, they've got like these weird like eye stalk things. And then they've got like this brainstem stalk, which they can apparently eject as a proboscis that comes out as a dart. And when it's close to like a human host, preferably for them, it'll go into the eye, travel along the optic nerve. And the way Donald Marshall describes it is that Vril dart contains the brainstem and the consciousness of the original Vril host that came out of the orangutan being, comes out and takes over the human host by basically using brain chemistry to lock into the human brain and hijack the human brain now as what's known as a Vril parasited host. And apparently they get dumber and they go psychotic because the Vril parasite itself, they're not as intelligent as normal human beings. And they have really strange, horrible, terrible behaviors. And this is one reason why a lot of them apparently need handlers, because if they don't have a handler, they'll do stupid stuff like try to sexually assault someone in broad daylight or try to bite someone's face.
Oh my gosh. That's
There you
wild.
go.
I do have a picture here. This is the picture you're referring to right here.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one.
that is creepy. Okay, and the fact that there's a person in the background wrapped up like a mummy, that's pretty wild. They're putting it right there in our faces. It's in the public.
Exactly. What Donald Marshall says is when that Vril host goes into the eye, it's very excruciatingly painful for the human host. The Vril parasite knows it's gotten to the right place, traveling along the optic nerve to the probably the prefrontal cortex, where a lot of the more conscious forward thinking thought is coordinated in the human brain. It tastes like butterscotch to the Vril parasite. And then it'll take like a couple of days for the processes of parasitization to take over. And then the person might appear in public and they'll be depicted with a black eye. And it's a very particular kind of seeming black eye when you look at it. Like I was on a show the other week and I had like an eye sty, and so I was joking, oh, Brian's got like Brian's been Vril hosted. I'm like, dude, there's a difference between an eye sty and like a massive, like a black eye, and I hope you'd be able to tell, if that ever happened, and then I'd have hopefully psychics and readers, they'd be shouting it out galore. But yeah, like you've seen the pictures of everyone from Sir Richard Branson to Bono of U2 to members of the royal family. Okay, literally like George Bush Sr. and Jr. Where it looks like someone punched them in the eye, and that apparently is a symptom of some of the trauma for some of these. And then other people, you might also have just ritualistically, they like to mimic and parrot these things that they do in reality. And so they might have a ritual where they also just beat you up and punch you in the eye to initiate you into lower levels of the Illuminati. And so you've got both of these phenomena, all the phenomena happening at once. Use your discernment, everybody.
Oh yeah, I see. There's people in the chat. Everybody knows the people in the Black Eye Club. Most of us have seen pictures of that. A lot of our politicians, a lot of our actors and actresses, people who carry weight in society, who have influence over society, including even the Queen of England had a black eye for a while there. You name it, they had it. So it makes you wonder if this is what's really going on. Then it's not really those bodies; they're just being host bodies at this point for something not human. Not human. It's like a horror movie that's come true, right?
Yeah, it's They Live combined with like the Puppet Masters and all of that, because at the end of the day, it's much more efficient for the negative groups if they want to harvest humanity for our genetics, our labor, sexual pleasure, mining raw materials, loosh, blood products, that is the number one black market apparently galactically. This is what I'm hearing from everybody in the know, exopolitically in contact with ETs. And so you run it as a farm. You don't come in and necessarily just wipe us all out and we're all gone. The end. Okay, that's what you want to do if you want to put an end to humanity as a threat one way or another, or you want to reset the board and use Earth for whatever your next grand experiment may be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's my question. If we are just like cattle to these gigantic, and from what I was researching, they can be 20 feet tall. Okay, it's like huge alpha draconians down in the 100 miles beneath our Earth's crust, right, or Earth's surface. Is there any way to get them out of here? Like just leave, go away? Do humans have a chance of getting them to leave our planet before they deplete all the resources and eat us all? Okay. That's my question, and it's a serious question.
I definitely have an analysis, but I want to hear from Barry before any cutouts happen.
Yes, Barry, what's going on? I'm so glad to have you back.
Thanks. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm being blocked, as you can clearly see. So I'm more just listening right now. Just more listening.
You're just listening?
It's interesting to hear all these things that I've, been around for a long time. You hear all these things coming together as this cohesive thing. And, I want to throw something out, is that some of these testimonies, because years ago, I reached out to the community wanting this reptilian question, and none of these individuals came forward. And the further back you go, the less of this type of this contact was being illustrated. And what I'm very concerned about, all right, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but right now with the type of neurogenic weapons that they have and neurogenic control, including the control of dreams, such as targeted dream incubation, to a point of where they can actually turn dreams into memories and those memories into reality. I question some of these testimonies. How do they know that they're not in a hive mind? And I hear so much, especially dealing with clients now, some that will be, well, there's this other me that's doing all this. This other me that's a super soldier. This other me that builds these reptilian things or does this or these weapons. And I mean, I've come across this in the work when somebody's in deep theta. You know what I mean? And that implies also there's this hive mind neurogenic technology that people like Dr. David Jacobs came across saying he was working on this stuff. And I'm just concerned that that's being used to completely rewrite the entire historical narrative of the contact phenomenon. Look, we know it's both. We've got the positive and the negative. But I mean, the positive is like that doesn't exist at all. And it's just all negative, and this stuff is taking over the entire narrative. And I'm not saying it's not real. And I'm not here to discredit anybody's testimony, but I have questions. And that would be one of them. It's time to start proving that these people are not suffering from neurogenic weaponry or dream incubation and things of this nature. Because right now, all the things are pointing towards that. And these people have had these physical contact. I want to know more. They've actually been in the presence of one of these reptilians. Not what I got responses of from hundreds of people when I put out that question, which is, oh, I haven't experienced them physical, but it was astral. I'm not discrediting that, but I mean, that's slightly different than encountering one physically. So I'm just throwing that out, all right? And the rest, I'm just listening because I'm trying to take in as much as I can and learn as much as I can.
So what my response is, Barry, you're very astutely recognizing these different patterns, but then I think you're in some cases misattributing the whys for why you're seeing the particular patterns. For example, a lot of people in the secret space programs only now in recent years, like 2009 or 8 or 7, from everything that I'm getting from all the people I talk to, were people even beginning to get memories and recalls of being abducted into these 20 and back programs, or 40 and back and 60 and back, or even 80 and back per Penny Bradley and others. The reason why they're in 20-year time frames is because Earth's natural time rhythm, the original Philadelphia experiment scientists for the US Navy discovered, is in a 20-year cycle. That's why it's the 20s. It's easiest for us to play with our timeline in 20-year cycles. Okay. And so it's as people who are taken as children to be MK Ultra'd and mind controlled, and a lot of this neurogenic programming and the voice to skull, which has only gotten better over the decades from like the 1950s, post World War II, has people's programming begun to break down. As we've gotten older, we've gained more sovereignty. All the programming of like, it's okay to like kill other sentient beings like it's nothing, that breaks down. Okay. And then people get more recall. People are doing more QHHT sessions. There's a lot of blind remote viewing to confirm all of this. There are people who are coming out with very detailed testimonies in the community who have never met each other, and it's lining up with remote viewers and psychics and other people that I'm speaking with, to the level that it's what I call actionable intelligence. How do I know it's good? I can act on something and know if I throw the ball that way, I can run over that way and someone else is going to catch it. Whatever. It's gonna link up. I know I've more.
I've dealt with clients that have been either abducted or try to be put in what we consider some of these programs, and some that have been in it in a totally different way than what I hear described by the general public. Okay. And in others, and you got to remember, when you start going back, especially to about 90, 91, 92, you have one person that came forward, maybe two, with a story. And then all of a sudden everybody's, well, hey, I remember that happened to me too. Even the person I know that was in one of the Montauk chairs. So I'm saying that there has to be a lot of discernment used there. And let me tell you, to think that the remote viewers can't be influenced by dark forces and see something that may not be there is not logical. And you can't always go back on everything on remote viewing. Jessica and I have discussed that. You mentioned some places, some of the people say, oh, don't go into the light because it's a trap, it's this and that. But when I give a blind target to like her, it correlates with the work that I've done, not because I wanted to. It's just the way it kind of is. So I'm saying in that way, please don't think that I don't have the assumption of how these people are all connecting things and these things, but I'm saying how it's coming forward. And it's not just the raising of memories. It's also that
people are being assassinated. People are being assassinated and killed and otherwise neutralized and smeared for decades. We literally have the testimony of former or now deceased Men in Black Joseph Spencer. Even today, when I speak to people in our community, not everyone feels safe to just come out, even though we're doing conferences and shows and writing books and the interview circuit. There are a lot of people even to this day who are still in these programs where their handler, and they'll admit it, tells them, yeah, you were in the programs and you know this information. And if you come out publicly now, we will kill you. And we will already mess with you. We just zapped you last week. Okay, your health is all effed up. How do you like that one? You want more of it? Come on out and talk more to us. Okay, that's literally people right now. So there's a long tradition of people being silenced. We talk about Phil Schneider. We started off this show talking about how he was killed, I believe, in his car. Shot multiple times and strangled with like wire or something like that. And, he made it very clear he didn't want to die. He was scheduled to, he had announced that a couple of days from when he had died, he was supposed to go to a UFO ET whistleblower conference to unveil a map of the deep underground bases and tunnel systems that he and his father had helped to build. Okay. Wow. Alex Collier, he's taken so much heat. And the reason why there are many people who have survived, a lot of people had protection. If you listen to the testimonies of people in the programs, many of them say they themselves would have died or would never have remembered or given their testimony if not for interference from positive galactic beings. A lot of times it turns out that those positive galactic beings turn out to be their very own starseed families. Okay, so their galactic families were able to intervene on their behalf while they were enslaved and exploited inside these programs. In terms of why are there so many different a vast variety of experiences, it's because there's so many programs and breakaway civilizations and competing factions. And then if you're taken by, you're visited, not so much taken by your positive ET family. Let's say you're from Christy May Wixon, for example, is from the Kitai. They're one of the tiger Lyran humanoid species. And her ET family comes to visit her while she's young. The secret space program, they have the ability to remote view that, track it, detect the gamma ray bursts from them with their anti-grav technology, whatever. They can track that. Now that person, you're a target of interest by the negative secret space programs. Now they're abducting you. So then you could have the same experiencer where they're confused. They're like, well, on the one hand, I remember being on like a cat person world, having amazing times in the clouds or whatever, and then on the other hand, I remember being like abducted by these horrible like grays with like a mantis being overseeing them, and like I felt like reptilian energy, and they were like sticking stuff in my eye, and it's like, well, what gives? Well, if you're having lifetime of experiences with different races and different programs, and you throw in time travel, that's what it's gonna look like. You're gonna get this gamash of testimony, and you're like, what is this person? It's so science fiction, I can't believe any of it. But when it starts all lining up independently, like to the level that it has, that I've discovered, and it wasn't easy for me to just come into the community and say, hey guys, give me your reptilian testimonies and spill the beans. It took a lot of work and contacts and going through like reaching out to thousands of people before like, okay, I'm fine. Wow, you were in the programs. Okay, now I co-organize a Montauk adventure tour of people. I'm getting to meet these people face to face and with Jessica and speak to them in person, together, in groups, individually. It's all lining up. And then even where the people who, like I'll call it Jimmy Payne, who I say Forrest Gump is based on. Yeah, I believe he saw and he was part of a lot of these programs. But Jimmy, you insert yourself and you embellish way too much in making yourself the hero of these black ops and programs that, yeah, you might have witnessed them, but you weren't like Dallas in the Aliens series. You were Forrest Gump, and it's okay. But that's where discernment becomes really important.
Okay, well let's get back to the reptilians that we're here to talk about, because we got a short show today. Okay, and thank you, Brian, and thank you, Barry, too, for that. It's a good discussion to have. We need to have these discussions occasionally, just to kind of air everything out and see all the different angles of it. Okay, we have a great question and in the chat, and this is from Vril.
I wasn't nearly done with that. Let's move on. Definitely. I wasn't nearly done with that and did not express a lot of what I think. So let's move on. Definitely.
Okay. Well, we're here for the reptilians today, y'all. Okay. So, but did the LA wildfires
and fantasy for reality?
Okay. Did the LA wildfires? Sorry, Barry. Did the LA wildfires affect the reptilians and their tunnels? Okay, and that's something that I talked about last week with Nick Sylvester. He came on the show. Love Nick to death. He's with the Truther Movement, and he actually kind of came out. I didn't expect him to. I didn't expect this to be a conversation at all. But he was talking about the wildfires, and he said, "Well, they potentially could have been set to smoke out some reptilian hives of like negative reptilians." I don't know, Brian. What do you think about that?
I've discussed this with a lot of people in our community. The white hats would never use directed energy weapons or arson to hurt people on the surface to get at bases underground. For one thing, a lot of the underground bases are not, in the case of LA, they're much closer to the surface because of the historic reptilian bases that I forget the gentleman who discovered them in like the 1920s LA with his like radar mapping system, and it's in the shape of a lizard, this cavern system, which is like more like east north LA, I think. Mm-hmm. And those I could see it was more the other side was using a combination of dues, arson, and government incompetence to burn out an area that they want to land grab because it lines up with their Agenda 21 and 2030 corridors pretty much perfectly when you see a lot of the burn maps, including Paradise, California as well. But they may have been burning out some of their own evidence because you did have the P. Diddy mansion and Palisades there that got burnt up in the fire. It may have served to also distract from a lot of what's going on. But I would say that in general, that was a black hat or negative agenda. The derp state side did the fires.
Ooh, yeah. Well, it's pretty obvious that they were set intentionally. That's my opinion, and this is for entertainment purposes only. Okay, It does appear that they were, in my opinion, they were set intentionally.
Well, there were multiple arsonists who did set them, so they, and to that extent, now how coordinated were any of those arsonists? Were any of them directed by a higher pay grade power, if you will? That's really, I think, the $1 million question.
Well, one of my favorite words, I know Barry and I would joke around about the loosh factor, right? And so the loosh factor, and if we're going back to the reptilians potentially running things and using us as cattle, basically, they live off loosh, right? And they maybe they're driving a lot of these negative things that are going on, like these fires, I would think.
Well, whether it's them directly saying to, have the fires lit by human minions or not, lower down the food chain, they themselves are going to enjoy and suck off of the loosh. What our Sasquatch contacts via Christopher Jacobs, when he telepathically communicates with them, they say that some of the sightings of like the orbs and the craft in that area in the days prior to the fires and then during the fires and immediately after were some negative groupings who were scouting out locations for land that they wanted to grab up, because apparently the Cabal derp state, they've made a lot of promises to lots of negative groupings in exchange for lots of favors to try to take over the planet and put us on the negative transhumanist timeline. Because the light has won and is winning, and that's manifesting here on Earth, even though it's still a painful, not pretty process in my mind, to a lot of us. The derp state, they can't manifest like the human slaves and all the stuff that they promised to these negative groupings. So some of the way that they've been, what Christopher Jacobs sources say, some of the payback is supposedly the derp state is trying to burn people off the land and say, here you go, since we couldn't give you this, take that.
Oh my gosh. Well, that makes sense too. I'd mentioned earlier during the show that before I brought you guys up, I mentioned, I'm probably going to get a Wikipedia warning underneath my video for this, because this topic is heavily censored. And it is. And you see how Barry's having major technical difficulties today. I've had a few too. My computer's running a little slow today for some reason, and which is unusual. And I have to wonder.
Sitting like this with my fingers crossed, so I haven't been cut off since I've been doing this.
Thank goodness. Well, I have access to a actual Facebook fact checker, and I don't think he works there anymore. I'm not sure.
Hey, I had a question. I had a question for both of you. Okay. Do you feel that all these recent entertainment purposes, of course, but these recent aircraft disasters have been reptilian influenced or negative, or do you feel like they've been orchestrated, or are they general accidents, in your opinions?
So there's the Philadelphia one. That one of all the most recent ones is the most sketchy, if you will, because even looking at the video, it doesn't quite look like a Mexican medical Learjet crashing. It looks more like almost like a cruise missile, kind of, because especially when you look at the impact crater. In terms of the Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac by Dulles International Airport, looking into it, looking into the air, when you listen to the air traffic control chatter over the radio, where air traffic control is trying to address the apparent pilot of that Black Hawk, and you look at the fact that they also have radar, the playback, the replay of where the helicopter was in relationship to all the other airplanes. It looks like that pilot, they tried to fly into 2 other airplanes, okay, over the Potomac and missed. Okay, and air traffic the whole time was saying, yeah, get lower, get behind the aircraft, move this way. And it didn't seem like there's much of response at all from the helicopter pilot. And the third one, unfortunately, was the charm. Okay, oh, I've got a sick doggy over here. The third one was a charm and hit. And for a while, initially, the family of the helicopter pilot did not want the information released. The other 2 victims, their families more quickly release information of who those 2 crew were. Unfortunately, there might have been a 4th who has not been released. The pilot, the family held off. What someone in the military said is, traditionally, the military will leave it to the discretion a lot of times to the family of whether or not the name will be publicly released of the deceased service member. And maybe the family didn't want that, but ultimately it looks like the military did cave to pressure, or for the public interest, they released the identity of the alleged helicopter pilot. Is a female pilot. I forget her name. The main thing of interest that a lot of people in the community have picked up on is that in 2019 or something like that to like 2023, she was a direct aide in the Biden administration and was directly in contact. They have photos of her literally with former, fake President Biden, I'll say it. And so my suspicion is that she suicided in a very nasty, tragic fashion to make as big of a political statement as possible. And, I think that's, a potential Trump derangement disorder or Trump, suicide. But that's my thoughts on that particular one. In terms of the F-35 that fell out of the sky at the Air Force Base, I think it was recently, in my opinion, that's a case. The F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program, going back to like early 2000s, has been way overpriced Pentagon multinational boondoggle, where from the very beginning they wanted a fighter that could, in some cases or some variants, hover, vertical takeoff and landing like a Harrier jump jet, but also have air superior dominance. While having a great cruising range, and a tactical range, while also having stealth superiority, and then the ability to have air dogfighting superiority by having the ability to detect and lock onto opponents from farther out ranges to engage effectively. And it's never lived up to its promise. It's apparently like a single engine craft. So with the F-35A variant, I think it is, for the Marines, that has the hover, that was the craft that fell out. Apparently it sucked up a seagull. So there's like 100 million or 88 million plus, craft gone because it ate a seagull. And so I see this as kind of a combination of the world in many ways as we know it. It's going to hell in a handbasket and it's over, but new earth is emerging, so we'll be fine. Okay, just be strong, be of sound and solid mind, put on the helmet of salvation. And but those are 3 of the recent air incidents I know of, and I see them all as being energetically related, but not coordinated, because like the reptilians snapped their fingers or anything like that.
Wow. Well, y'all, I'm always suspicious of everything I see. Okay, everything that's on. But I've been super busy all week, and I've been driving around out of town and dealing with personal things going on in my life, so I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. I have just decided that I'm not going to fly this year. Okay. I will be driving down to the Full Disclosure Now conference, Brian.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I can speak to that, Jessica, because another
Yeah.
plane incident is, the standards of aircraft mechanics have fallen hugely, bigly. While the senior aircraft mechanics who grew up in the trade and knew their way, when their airline unions were much stronger and took more pride in their work, and when the aircraft manufacturers themselves, they also had much better standards. It's like you wonder, like, how can airplanes built earlier be better than airplanes built today?
Just like
Well, for some,
houses.
yeah. Well, sometimes,
Cars.
when Boeing adds that little extra ice maker to keep the plane from tilting up, it can actually malfunction and fight the pilot and cause the airplane to stall and crash. That was a couple incidents. There have been incidents where it looks like, because the aircraft mechanics have been so abused by the the airlines themselves, that they themselves may have sabotaged some of the aircraft, whether it was during routine maintenance or back at the manufacturing stage when they were making these craft themselves in recent years. And so all of that is going to lead to, making the flying the janky skies is really what I see. And then you throw in all the burnt out air traffic controllers, especially after the 1980s Patco air traffic controller strike under Reagan, going back to then, and how poorly they've been staffed. All of these are many recipes for disaster. So my prayers for the skies.
Mm-hmm. Barry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm actually from the air capital of the world, so that craft that got hit was coming out of here. So I'm pretty familiar with aircraft stuff. But the reason why I asked that is because there's actually a picture a long time ago, taken a long time ago, probably 15 years ago, more now. It's the stewardess. And I think she's actually an American steward, of Russian descent, but she was taking like selfies, and behind her is this holographic creature sitting in the seat, and it looks almost reptilian like, but it's got this thing on it that it looks almost like it's some type of AI creature, unquote, cyborg maybe. And I've heard before and how often these type of beings are on board these crafts advertising things, and we get little indication in entertainment, like William Shatner and the teddy bear outside pulling up the wing and stuff like that. Everybody remembers that one. But I think in reality, makes you wonder how many of these things are quote unquote Foo Fighters, have things on board like that AI technology that could be sabotaging our planes on top of everything else. That's why I just asked that. The weird question, but worthy of investigation.
So that's a great one. In terms of that, like, reptilian being with a stewardess being photographed, it might have been a reptilian being with like a holographic technology to kind of shield it from sight. And whereas the stewardess walking around didn't detect it, it was picked up by the camera technology in kind of like a photobomb moment, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looked like the thing on the side. It looked like the thing that Frankenstein has. So
Really?
coming out of his neck. Yeah, it's a large like tube thing coming out of his neck. Yeah, and you're right. It does kind of look like it'd be a suit. I posted on Facebook before. I'll post it again today.
Please post it again for sure. And we cannot forget that woman who said that MFer right there is not real. Do y'all remember that last year or year before? The lady,
yes.
She swore there was a reptilian shapeshifter on a plane.
And no one has seemingly been able to really locate her. People have kind of popped up on like TikTok or Instagram, but it doesn't look like her. And it seems like it's more of a diversion away. And I wonder who that person really is. I think that person probably did see something, but it's really hard to say what they saw. And I know psychics have looked into it, and one might have been Psychic Liz Cross picked up on it. It was like a guy who has like some reptilian in him, and he might have like flashed his eyes at her or something. He was like flirting with her. He thought she was sexy, and she saw like his pupils like nictate, like his like go like, instead of blink, it went wink, wink. And she was like, that guy's not human. And I that's my suspicion of what happened. And then they kind of like shut her up and then put other people who've like turned it into like some weird psyop where you don't know what to think.
Oh gosh. Firewater by Design. Thank you for gifting free memberships to our audience today. Gifted 5 Cryptid Hunters memberships to the channel. Thank you so much. That is so sweet. I love the support and I appreciate you so much. And congrats to everybody who got those today. Very sweet. Okay, my question to you guys, I'm gonna point this towards Barry. How many reptilians are walking among us right now? People who have the slitted eyes and their eyes blink sideways and all that kind of stuff. Is it more common than not?
Personally, I think it is. And when you look at one of the first people I heard talking about this was Credo Budua, even before he got discovered by David Icke. And he was saying how you have the type of reptilians like Shatari. I'm giving you a picture of that, but how they actually take us over from the sex chakras, the lower chakras, energetically. And there's a picture too that one of them, you can see it kind of hovering over a person. And that's how he was saying that general possession begins with them, but then you've got those that are incarnating too. So I would say it's probably a lot more common than we would think, and that even to the degree right there, you have that's supposed to be a Shatari. And that's the one that, as Credo said, looks more like Darth Maul from Star Wars. But also, you had a type of dinosaur too, Canornis, I want to say, that has the spikes on it. And you've got certain African tribes that have head binding that looks quite similar to that. Okay, to what these balls on the head. Now that's supposed to be from the Hadrosaurus, which is from our Cretaceous period. But they say the Hadrosaurus would have evolved into the humanoid there, but actually there was a connection with them. And as it was told to me back then, the Saurians, and the Saurians are the Earth reptilians that were more of Earth origin, that were underground after the cataclysm that ended the Ice Age. You had them, but they would have evolved into that had they not have had that cataclysm. There it is. There's the one. That's the one that shows that taking over through the lower chakras. And again, that's one of the ones. That's not one of the royalty, like what Corey told me he encountered. That's one of the ones that's more a worker, Shatari. And that's what before I end on that, this is a touchy subject. Because, when I first did the years and years ago, it was like 2016, there was somebody that sent me a video, and it was a lady that she sent me this video, and it's got this creature that looks like it's eating a child's head. And it's got the elongated jaw like reptilians can do. And supposedly it's for a movie, but that movie's never come forward. And this person said to me, I think this is real. And they had posted it on my timeline. And my answer was, I don't know. I've not experienced that, but it might very well be the jaw thing. And I posted a picture that Cassara had done that did all my artwork. And it's a woman that's sitting in her bed going like this, and there's a reptilian on her like this. I just posted that. I don't have an answer. And I got attacked by a couple of people. One person, this lady, she says, Barry, I can't believe you're saying that. My reptilian husband would never do that. And then they started sending me illustrations they had of them with this reptilian, and then they've got kids with it. And they're all standing like this family in front of this nice little gingerbread house. And the children that she'd represented to me looked like they could. I said, oh my God, they look like they have those jaws, the way they're illustrated. And it just didn't go well. I had to wind up blocking them. But I mean, it just stuff like that is so touchy. Like I said, I've not experienced any, so I'm not expert on them. I can see what I've read and heard, and it's very, very, very interesting. But I think that the time, like Brian mentioned, with the cameras and videos, you're seeing more and more, especially catching the slits of the eyes, and the camera reveals much more than the eye can often catch. So,
and it seems as though some of our. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Brian.
No, go ahead, Jessica. You go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it seems as though there are news anchors are being caught shifting and shape shifting and things like that. News anchors and people at music concerts, music venues have been seen shape shifting into large reptilians. And it sounded like it was all a big joke at first, but I don't think it's a joke.
So with the newscasters, I believe there's like a Russian newscaster in particular, where she's been captured on film, like with the nictating eyelids or whatever, pupils. I think the deal with her is she might be a renegade Palladian. They're called renegade Palladians. They're basically human like Palladians. Like think like the Ashtar Command, like good looking, blonde looking. Look at that, like that one Russian newscaster. She's physically attractive as a human, right? Well, apparently there's a faction of the Palladians who genetically intermingled with Draconians, and they're known as the renegade Palladians. And so that I believe she might be one of them here on Earth. So she's a humanoid with reptilian DNA as well, who's highly attractive, put in a position of power, the news media, to influence millions of people. In terms of those pictures that you had up that Barry was commenting on earlier, one of the ones with the Saurians was like the dinosaur type. If you go back to it, it's more yellow. Our good friend John Whitberg in the community, that one, he has the being on the right. He has recall, and other people have confirmed this, that at the Montauk Project for a while at Camp Hero in the underground base there, they had a Saurian being who looked very similar to that. I forget if his name was Enoch, or I'm just confusing that with the Land of the Lost character, but there's disclosure out there. But this being was a friendly enslaved reptilian who was there at the Montauk Project, who his people had been enslaved by the Draco. And so he himself was just another slave at the Montauk base. And John Whitberg has very fond memories of this being, saying that that was like the only being who was really, really nice to him at the base during his own indentured servitude there. And then Barry was commenting about how, when he posted the one video of the one reptilian being hinging its jaw to like eat someone, again, you've got good people and bad people, good reptilians and bad reptilians, good and bad. It's like, some of us, we're going to try to raise children in better society and, have a farm. And other people are like psycho cannibal killers. We're both human. And I could show you a video of one and your understanding and experiences of humans are only the idyllic Garden of Eden farm humans. And then you're seeing the Mad Max cannibalistic human video, and you're like, that's not true. No way. Like, look at my family. We're sharing sheep. It's like, well, you're both not wrong. It's like it exists, and it's like, and so that's part of it. Is like when you really look at it, all this kind of confirms the phenomenon, because you should be seeing a wide spectrum of the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you're only seeing they're only positive or all only bad, then generally, like I've found that those testimonies tend to be the ones that are more off key.
Real quick, Jessica, can we talk about the black reptilian real quick?
Yes, of course. We've only got about 5 minutes because I'm going to have to cut it and go get my kid. Yeah, thank you.
Real quick, one of the most fascinating regressions I've done, okay, and this was a client that came from many. I'm a regressionist, but I don't do QHHT. What I do is different. Every past life regression we had done, they were a warrior of some type. Earth incarnations, everyone. And they were actually holding trauma in their body from each one of these lifetimes in different organs. But this regression, this one was one where they were, it was like a lifetime of respite, a non-warrior lifetime. And it was just outside of Egyptian times. This would have been when the pyramids were still very newer, okay? And they described being on like a smaller pyramid that was outside of Egypt, but on the ley line. And Jessica, they described it being covered in the black, like Vanta black material. Okay. They have no idea what that is. That's what they're discovering. Okay. And this is because it was not to be seen. And what it was doing was harmonizing the ley lines of the planet. And inside of this place were people that were described, they were describing them as being more like Essenes, that type. And then they started saying, and there are extraterrestrials walking around in here too. I mean, so what do they look like? They described some that were Caucasian, one that was like insectoid. And then they said, but then there's the one that this whole thing is kind of about that hides out in the back. They never come forward. The black one, the black reptilian. I immediately, tell me more. And they start describing the individual who's back there that is outside of a general galactic time zone, the planet they're from. So it implies that maybe it's inside of a black hole or portal to that way anyway. But they describe this individual as being able to focus as like almost a type of religious figure from their planet. And what they can do is focus their intent so much that they can destroy almost anything. And in that way, they were saying that's what's stopping a lot of these negative extraterrestrial factions from coming here, because they're afraid that he's going to focus his thought on them if they come here. And this was not described as being a negative being, but it was being hidden out here on Earth. And the way they described this black reptilian, it was quite intricate. And I just had never heard anything like that. Real quick, and it reminds me of that one Star Trek: The Next Generation, where the old people were on the planet, and just two of them, and the old man was actually projecting everything. He was called a Dowd, and he said he actually destroyed the ship that came and killed his wife. And then he looked at him and said, I just destroyed that ship. I destroyed all of them in existence. I think you're dealing with something on that level. I just never heard nothing like that. So just want to throw that out for you all, It's just, all I can do, I'll do regression, like all I do is sit up there and go, I'll be tripped out, try to keep focus. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, he's like Thanos, and you have a fantastic video about that on your YouTube channel. So you guys, please go to Barry Littleton on YouTube, and Barry, maybe you could like put that video. We'll put a link to the video in the description box after the show. How about that? And
if I can get my internet back up.
Yeah, I know, right? All this technical difficulties because we're talking about reptilian humanoids today. But man, this has been a fantastic conversation. I want to thank Brian and Barry so much. Thank y'all so much for being here today. And this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, actually. And I know the audience has enjoyed it. I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody's comments today. My computer's acting a little funky, so I didn't want to test the waters with it. So pulling up too many comments today. But Brian and Barry, I want to ask Brian first. Brian, where can people find you, and tell everybody about the conference you got coming up?
Yeah, the 2025 Full Disclosure Now conference in Florida this July 15th to 20th, because we also have a sister event, Day of Being 5.0, a free beach weekend at nearby Indian Shores Beach. Susan Long in our audience, also Jordan, among others. Hopefully Garrel with Midwest Night Watchers will be able to join us as well. There, Susan Long has encountered reptilians in the programs, and some people have witnessed her shape-shifting energetically to an extent to a reptilian form. So want to give a shout out, www.fulldisclosuremovement.org for tickets. Get the early bird pricing before we reset it on the website soon.
Wonderful. I'll be there. And it's a wonderful conference, you guys. I was there last year. It was fantastic. I mean, the lineup.
You'll be there this year too.
Yes, I'll be there this year too, y'all. I'm driving.
Yep. And hopefully we can have you too, Barry, this time.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you for having me down there, Brian. It was a great conference. You guys, please come down there. Some of the best speakers. It's fantastic. And the Day of Being is really fun. I went to the first one that they had of the Day of Being, and that's very special as well. So please come down and join us July the 15th through the 20th now. Okay, I put the 15th through the 18th on the ticker, but it's 15th through the 20th.
Now, if you want to join it for the weekend, which you do.
Oh, yeah. You want to stay for the weekend if you can, y'all. Okay. Now, Barry, where can everybody find you? You have a fantastic Patreon and a YouTube channel. You want to tell everybody?
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Everything glitched again. I panicked. I'm under Barry Littleton on Facebook, also YouTube, on Patreon. I do a lot of stuff on YouTube, just Barry Littleton. My email is barrylittleton13@gmail.com for anybody who might want services or to communicate. And thank you very much for having me on. Sorry for all the glitches and everything. I wasn't much a part of this, so I apologize to everybody.
Hey, I'm just glad you're here. We had a great time today. And you guys, please go over to Barry Littleton on YouTube and Patreon. And Barry does provide hypnotic regressions and things like that. So just contact him at barrylittleton13@gmail.com. And yeah, this has been awesome. I hope you guys will both come back and hang out with me again very soon. And I can't wait for the conference, Brian. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Yeah. We had somebody in the audience was asking, is there going to be a way to watch it online? Are you offering that this year?
Yes. We will be doing live stream tickets, and we should do an early bird live stream tickets as well. But we really like to maximize the value and try our best to make it affordable to get 4 days and nights of presentations on 2 stages.
Yeah.
So thank you to anyone. If you can't be there in person, please join us on the live stream, and all the details will be found on our website coming up.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, y'all, please visit the website, fulldisclosuremovement.org. All right, everybody. Y'all come back and see me on Wednesday. I'll be back on A Glitch in the Matrix on Wednesday, and then Thursday and on Saturday. But everybody, thanks for being here today. And I want to go back and thank Firewater by Design for gifting those memberships today. That meant the world to me. It means the world to me for all the support y'all give me. And to all of our audience as well. All right. Thanks to my mods too. Y'all have a wonderful day. Barry, Brian, thanks for being here again. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. Please be safe out there, y'all. Keep your head on a swivel. We're living in dangerous times, but don't live in fear. Okay. No fear. And I'll see y'all later. Bye, y'all.